A West Milwaukee man is accused of killing his mother with a bat. Prosecutors charge Cheryl Jenkins with first-degree intentional homicide in the death of his mother, Cheryl. According to a criminal complaint, Jenkins told police he and his mom were arguing over money. Prosecutors say Jenkins hit his mother in the head with a bat last week near 44th and Mitchell.
She built a dance studio. She poured her life into her community. She was a legend in Philadelphia before Milwaukee even knew her name. And on a quiet night, she opened her door for her own son, gave him a place to sleep, and never woke up again. Let's talk about it. When the clock strikes midnight, the truth comes out. I'm 12 a.m. crime, and every single day I bring you real cases of domestic violence that turn deadly. The stories the system tried to bury, the victims who deserve justice. If you're about that raw, unfiltered truth, hit subscribe. New case drops every day at midnight. Don't sleep on justice. This is 12 a.m. crime. Cheryl Gaines Jenkins was the kind of woman people remember, not because of one moment, not because of one thing she did, but because of the life she built, piece by piece, with her own hands. Philadelphia-born, a dancer, a teacher, a woman who turned her passion into a business and named it La Chère Tari, her own studio, her own legacy, her own corner of the world where she poured into people. Her community called her a dance icon, her family called her the greatest, and her daughter Nicole, who would later be the one to announce her passing to the world, called her simply our dance mom. Now that tells you something about the kind of woman Cheryl was, because a title like that does not come from just showing up. That comes from years of dedication, years of being present, years of being the kind of mother and mentor that people hold on to long after the music stops. By the time this story takes place, Cheryl was 66 years old and living in West Milwaukee, Wisconsin. She had a fiancé. She had a home. She had a life that was still moving, still full, still hers. And she had a son, 38-year-old Haywood Jenkins, who, by all accounts, was still in her life. Still welcomed, still someone she was willing to open her door for, and that right there is where this story starts to get heavy, because the thing about Cheryl Jenkins is that she was not naive. She was not someone who did not know her son. She knew him. She loved him. And on the night of February 24th, 2026, when Haywood came to her apartment, she let him in. Not reluctantly, not after a long debate. She let him in. And she gave him the guest room, her own home, her own space. And she went to sleep believing that was the right thing to do. Moving on, because we need to talk about what the people around Cheryl saw, what they felt, and what was already sitting in that apartment long before the sun went down that night. Now hold on, because I want you to picture this clearly. It is the night of February 24th. The apartment is quiet. Cheryl's fiancé is there. Haywood is settled into the guest room. Everything on the surface looks like a normal night. A son visiting his mother. A family under one roof. Nothing about the outside of this story would tell you what was coming. But at some point that night, something shifted. Haywood and his mother got into an argument. And of all the things it could have been about, money, life, stress, history, the argument that night was about silver coins. I said what I said. Silver coins. That was the reported trigger. Now, whether there was more underneath that argument, whether it was years of tension finally finding a mouth to speak through, we may never fully know. But what we do know is that it started with silver coins, and Cheryl at some point was not giving Haywood the response he wanted. According to what Haywood himself, later, told police, he felt like she was not listening to him. And then, he claims, she picked up a pair of scissors and pointed them at him. Now, let's not forget, this is his account, his version, the only version we have from inside that room, because Cheryl Jenkins is not here to tell us hers. But what happened next is not in dispute, because Haywood Jenkins told police exactly what he did. He said he grabbed a baseball bat, and he struck his mother, multiple times, while she was seated in a chair. The audacity, not standing, not charging at him, seated in a chair in her own home, and her son, the one she gave a guest room, stood over her with a bat. He later told police he did not want to hit her, that he flipped out, that the situation got away from him, and while some people might sit with that and find something to hold on to, the details that follow make that very hard to do, because when it was over, Hayward Jenkins did not call for help. He did not check on his mother. He did not wake up her fiancé sleeping down the hall. He walked out of that apartment, and around 6 in the morning, surveillance cameras near Miller Parkway caught him, running to catch a bus. And he was gone. He left her there. He left his mother, face down on the floor of her own guest room. And he got on a bus and left. That's wild. Meanwhile, down the hall, her fiancé had no idea. He had woken up around 4 in the morning, heard a noise, got up, checked the living room, saw nothing that alarmed him, and went back to sleep. Think about that. He was right there, a few feet away, and he went back to sleep, because nothing in what he saw told him that something had already happened, or was happening, to the woman he loved. A few hours later, he woke up again, and this time, when he went to check the guest room, he found Cheryl, face down, on the floor, not breathing, and on top of her body, resting there like it had been. Placed was a wooden baseball bat, blood visible on the barrel. No, because that image alone should stop you cold. When officers arrived at that apartment on the morning of February 25th, 2026, what they walked into was not a scene that left a lot of questions about what happened. The bat was right there. The blood was right there. Cheryl Jenkins was right there, face down, a wound to the back of her head, gone. The question was not what happened inside that apartment. The question was, where is her son? Because Hayward Jenkins was nowhere to be found. Now, the fiancé had already told police everything he knew. He told them Hayward had come over the night before, that they gave him the guest room, that he himself had woken up at 4 in the morning, heard something, looked around, and saw nothing out of place, and that when he woke up again hours later and walked to the guest room, that is when he found her. He made that call. He is the one who dialed the police. He is the one who had to stand in that apartment and process what he was seeing while waiting for help to arrive. Let's not forget that. That man's life changed that morning too. Investigators got to work fast. They pulled surveillance footage from the apartment complex, and what they found painted a very clear picture. Around 6 in the morning, roughly 2 hours after the fiancé had heard that noise and gone back to sleep, Hayward Jenkins was caught on camera near Miller Parkway. And he was not walking. He was running to catch a bus, running away from what he had just done, leaving his mother on that floor like she was something he could just walk away from. And he did walk away. He got on that bus, and he was gone. So now investigators had a timeline. They had footage. They had the scene. What they needed was Hayward. And that is where the family came in. Because when police reached out and started asking questions, family members did not hesitate. They told officers exactly where to look. They said Hayward Jenkins might be at the Potawatomi Casino Hotel. Think about that for a second. His mother was lying on a floor. A bloody bat had been left on top of her body. And her son was at a casino. Make it make sense. Officers headed straight there. And sure enough, around 12:30 that afternoon, less than 5 hours after Cheryl's body had been discovered, Hayward Jenkins was located at the Potawatomi Casino Hotel and taken into custody without incident. No struggle, no chase. He was just there, sitting in a casino while his mother's apartment was being processed as a crime scene.
According to a criminal complaint, Cheryl Jenkins' fiancé called West Milwaukee police to her apartment near 44th and Mitchell around 8 in the morning, February 24th. He told police Cheryl's son, Hayward Jenkins, came to the house the night before, and they let him stay in the guest room. Her fiancé said he woke up at 4 a.m. to a noise and checked the living room, saw nothing, and went back to sleep. He woke up again a few hours later. That's when he found Cheryl Jenkins in the guest room face down on the floor. Her son was not there. Officers found a wooden bat on top of Jenkins' body with blood on the barrel and a wound in the back of her head. They later found surveillance video of her son running near Millard Parkway and getting onto a bus around 6 that morning. Family members told police Hayward Jenkins could be at Potawatomi Casino. That's where he was arrested around 12:30 that afternoon. According to the complaint, Jenkins told police he and his mother got into an argument over silver coins and her not listening to him. He claims she pointed scissors at him and that he, quote, got angry with the situation and flipped out. Jenkins said he didn't want to hit her with the bat, but he did, striking her multiple times as she was sitting in a chair. Jenkins told police he was, quote, wrong for murdering my mother. Her neighbors on South 44th Street are disturbed by the deadly attack.
A little bit of disbelief. It's a pretty nice neighborhood, nice and quiet over here for the most part. So, and the fact that I believe this was a mother-son related incident and the extreme violence that was, utilized, it's a shame.
What happened next is the part of this story that is genuinely hard to sit with. Because once Hayward Jenkins was in custody, he talked. He did not lawyer up immediately and go silent. He sat down with investigators and he told them what happened. In his own words, he said he and his mother had gotten into an argument over silver coins, that she was not listening to him, that during the argument she picked up a pair of scissors and pointed them at him, and that he got angry, that he flipped out. He said he grabbed the baseball bat and he struck her multiple times while she was sitting in a chair, and then he said something that stopped the room. He told police, I was wrong for murdering my mother. Not, I think I may have hurt her. Not, things got out of hand. He used the word murdering. He named what he did. And while some people might read that as remorse, the details surrounding it make it very hard to frame it that cleanly. Because a person who felt true remorse in that moment, a person who was genuinely horrified by what they had done, does not leave, does not run, does not catch a bus and go sit in a casino for hours while their mother is on the floor. But hey, those are just the facts. You can decide what you do with them. Hayward Jenkins was charged with first-degree intentional homicide, and when he appeared in court, a judge set his bond at $300,000. The courtroom appearance was brief. The charge was clear, and the words he had already spoken to police, his own admission, were sitting in a criminal complaint with his name on it. The case, at its core, was not built on circumstantial evidence. It was built largely on what Hayward Jenkins said himself. The surveillance footage placed him leaving the scene. The bat placed him at the crime. And his own mouth placed him in that room, swinging. Neighbors who lived on South 44th Street were shaken. One of them put it plainly.
A little bit of disbelief. It's a pretty nice neighborhood, nice and quiet over here for the most part. So, and the fact that I believe this was a mother-son related incident and the extreme violence that was, utilized, it's a shame.
A shame. That word carries a lot of weight when you let it land. Because this was not a stranger. This was not a break-in. This was not random. This was a son. In his mother's home. In her guest room. At her invitation. And that is the part of this story that sits in your chest and does not move. Let's go back to Cheryl for a moment. Because this story cannot end with a courtroom and a bond amount. That is not who she was. That is not what she deserves to be remembered by. Cheryl Gaines Jenkins had a name before any of this. She had a whole identity that had nothing to do with how she died. She was Philadelphia's own. A dancer. A woman who built something from the ground up and called it La Chère Tari. A dance studio. A creative home. A place where people came to learn and grow and feel something. Her community did not just like her. They called her a legend. They called her the greatest of all time at what she did. And that kind of title is not handed out. That is earned. Over years. Over decades. Over a lifetime of showing up and giving people something real. She had moved to Milwaukee, but Philadelphia never let her go, and Milwaukee had claimed her too, because that is the kind of woman she was, the kind that leaves a mark on every place she touches. She had a fiancé who loved her. She had a daughter, Nicole, who looked at her mother and saw a legacy worth celebrating publicly, worth naming, worth holding up for the world to see. She had a son-in-law, Hosea Williams, who called her a dance icon and a legend in the same breath that he asked people to pray for his wife. These were not just words typed in grief. These were people describing someone they had known deeply, someone whose presence was so large that even in their most broken moments, they led with who she was, not just what happened to her. Nicole's words after her mother's passing were raw and unfiltered in the way that only real grief can be. She wrote that her mother had gained her wings, and that the whole thing felt truly unreal, that she was numb, heartbroken, crushed. And if you have ever lost someone suddenly, someone you did not get to say a proper goodbye to, you know exactly the kind of numb she is talking about. The kind that does not feel like sadness yet because your mind has not caught up to what your heart already knows. And Hosea, her son-in-law, he called Cheryl Moms, not mother-in-law, not his wife's mother, Moms. That one word tells you everything about the kind of relationship they had, about the kind of woman Cheryl was to the people in her circle. She was not just someone you tolerated at family gatherings. She was someone you claimed, someone you loved out loud. At the end of the day, Cheryl Jenkins was 66 years old, and she still had so much road ahead of her. A studio, a community, a family, a fiancé, a life that was nowhere near finished. And all of that, every bit of it, was taken on a night when she did something as simple and as human as opening her door. Now, this channel does not tell you how to feel about Haywood Jenkins. That is not our place. Some people will look at this case and feel pure rage. Some will look at it and wonder what was really going on beneath the surface of that family for years before that night. Some will sit with the silver coins detail and feel confused because nothing about it makes the math add up, and you are allowed to feel all of those things at the same time. We are not here to hand you a conclusion. We are here to make sure Cheryl's story is told, fully, honestly, and with the respect she deserved. Because the thing about cases like this is that the details that make the headlines are always the crime. The weapon, the charge, the bond amount, the court date, and the victim, the actual human being at the center of it all, can get reduced to a name in a complaint if nobody slows down long enough to say who they really were. So let's say it clearly, one more time, for the people in the back. Cheryl Gaines Jenkins was a dance icon, a legend, a mother, a fiancé, a studio owner, a community pillar, Philadelphia's own, Milwaukee's beloved, and she deserved to grow old, surrounded by every single person who loved her. She let her son in, and she never got to walk back out. Rest well, Cheryl. If this story moved you, you are already in the right place. This is 12 a.m. Crime, where we do not look away. Subscribe and make sure your notifications are on, because we drop new stories every week.